Hello, this is day 82 of reading one canto of the Divine Comedy every single day. We are on Paradiso, Canto 15, which I'll read from the Longfellow translation before giving some quick comments. A will benign, in which reveals itself ever the love that righteously inspires, as in the iniquitous cupidity, silence imposed upon that dulcet lyre, and quieted the consecrated chords, that heaven's right hand doth tighten and relax. How unto just entreaties shall be deaf those substances which, to give me desire of praying them, with one accord grow silent? 'Tis well that without end he should lament, who for the love of thing that doth not last eternally despoils him of that love. As through the pure and tranquil evening air there shoots from time to time a sudden fire, moving the eyes that steadfast were before, and seems to be a star that changeth place, except that in the part where it is kindled nothing is missed, and this endureth little. So from the horn that to the right extends unto that cross's foot there ran a star out of the constellation shining there. Nor was the gem dissevered from its ribbon, but down the radiant fillet ran along, so that fire seemed it behind alabaster. Thus piteous did Anchises' shade reach forward, if any faith our greatest muse deserve, when in Elysium he his son perceived. O sanguis meus, o supra infusa gratia Dei, sicut tibi cui bis unquam caeli janua reclusa. Thus that effulgence, whence I gave it heed, then round unto my lady turned my sight, and on this side and that was stupefied. For in her eyes was burning such a smile, that with mine own methought I touched the bottom both of my grace and of my paradise. Then, pleasant to the hearing and the sight, the spirit joined to its beginning things I understood not, so profound it spake. Nor did it hide itself from me by choice, but by necessity, for its conception above the mark of mortals set itself. And when the bow of burning sympathy was so far slackened that its speech descended towards the mark of our intelligence, the first thing that was understood by me was, Blessed be thou, O trine and one, who hast unto my seed so courteous been. And it continued, Hunger, long and grateful, drawn from the reading of the mighty volume wherein is never changed the white nor dark, thou hast appeased, my son, within this light in which I speak to thee, by grace of her who to this lofty flight with plumage clothed thee. Thou thinkest that to me thy thought doth pass from him who is the first, as from the unit, if that be known, ray out the 5 and 6. And therefore, who I am thou askest not, and why I seem more joyous unto thee than any other of this gladsome crowd. Thou thinkest the truth, because the small and great of this existence look into the mirror wherein, before thou thinkest, thy thought thou showest. But that the sacred love, in which I watch with sight perpetual, and which makes me thirst with sweet desire, may better be fulfilled, now let thy voice secure and frank and glad proclaim the wishes, the desire proclaim, to which my answer is decreed already. To Beatrice I turned me, and she heard before I spake, and smiled to me a sign, that made the wings of my desire increase. Then in this wise began I, Love and knowledge, when on you dawned the first equality, of the same weight for each of you became. For in the sun, which lighted you and burned with heat and radiance, they so equal are, that all similitudes are insufficient. But among mortals will end argument, for reason that to you is manifest, diversely feathered in their pinions are. Whence I, who mortal am, feel in myself this inequality, so give not thanks, save in my heart, for this paternal welcome. Truly do I entreat thee, living topaz, set in this precious jewel as a gem, that thou wilt satisfy me with thy name. O leaf of mine, in whom I pleasure took, even while awaiting, I was thine own root. Such a beginning he in answer made me. Then said to me, That one from whom is named thy race, and who 100 years and more has circled round the mount on the first cornice, a son of mine, and thy great-grandsire was. Well it behoves thee that the long fatigue thou shouldst for him make shorter with thy works. Florence within the ancient boundary, from which she taketh still her terce and nons, abode in quiet, temperate, and chaste. No golden chain she had, nor coronal, nor lady's shod with sandal shoon, nor girdle that caught the eye more than the person did. Not yet the daughter at her birth struck fear into the father, for the time and dower did not overrun this side or that the measure. No houses had she, void of families, Not yet had thither come Sardanapalus, to show what in a chamber can be done, nor yet surpassed had Montemalo been by your Uccelatoio, which surpassed shall in its downfall be as in its rise. Belincion Berti saw I go begirt with leather and with bone, and from the mirror his dame depart without a painted face. And him of Nerli saw, and him of Vecchio, contented with their simple suits of buff, and with the spindle and the flax their dames. O fortunate women! And each one was certain of her own burial place, and none as yet for sake of France was in her bed deserted. One over the cradle kept her studious watch, and in her lullaby the language used that first delights the fathers and the mothers. Another, drawing tresses from her distaff, told over among her family the tales of Trojans and of Thesol and Rome. As great a marvel then would have been held a Lapo Saltarello, a Chiangela, as Cincinnatus or Cornelia now. To such a quiet, such a beautiful life of the citizen, to such a safe community, and to so sweet an inn, did Mary give me, with loud cries invoked, and in your ancient baptistry at once Christian and Cacciaguida I became. Moronto was my brother, and Alessio. From Val di Paddo came to me my wife, and from that place thy surname was derived. I followed afterward the Emperor Conrad, and he begirt me of his chivalry, so much I pleased him with my noble deeds. I followed in his train against that law's iniquity, whose people doth usurp your just possession, through your pastor's fault. There by that execrable race was I released from bonds of the fallacious world, the love of which defileth many souls, and came from martyrdom unto this peace. So the soul that descends from the cross to talk to Dante is his great-great-grandfather, Cacciaguida, who was from Florence and served as a crusader before he died. As Dante introduces him, he compares the scene to a scene from the Aeneid, in which Aeneas, who visits the underworld, visits Elysium, where the great souls, the blessed ones, are. He's greeted by his father Anchises. Well, he compares that scene to the one in which he is in now, in which an ancestor of his comes to greet him with joy. And so, Dante is compared to Aeneas. It's not the first time that this has been done, actually. At the very beginning of the tale, of the Inferno, where Dante is doubting himself, doubting whether he can undertake this journey to hell, purgatory, and heaven, he says, well, gee, I'm not like St. Paul, who reported a mystical experience of heaven, and I'm not like Aeneas, who descended into the underworld. So, again, it's just another comparison between Dante and Aeneas. Partly, of course, because of Dante's love for Virgil, but if you let me go on long enough, because I think the Divine Comedy is an epic poem. And so, of course, the epic heroes are similar. Cacciaguida, when he approaches Dante, though, reveals how Dante's thoughts are being read by the other souls. It is the fact that Dante's thoughts, like everything else, are contained within God. And God is united to the souls of the blessed. Therefore, by being united to God, they are aware of Dante's thoughts. Compare this to the souls in the Inferno, who are unaware of the present. They cannot be aware of the present, in which God's grace is given. They're cut off from it. And while for the moment they know the future, once time ends, they will not. Even that knowledge will be cut off from them. Compare that to these souls in paradise, who, because they're united to God, are aware of all the present, all the past, and all the future. Cacciaguida gives a comparably short denunciation of Florence. It doesn't really say much about what it's done wrong, but says that, Florence, I really loved living there, and it outdid the glory of Rome, and it also outdid the fall of Rome, which is about as harsh of a compliment as you can give. There was a line in there about how at Cacciaguida's time, the wives of Florence had not yet been left deserted in their beds on account of France. That's a reference to Charles of France, who's been talked about throughout the comedy. He comes to Florence to wreak havoc and war at one point. That's a reference to that. And then lastly, Cacciaguida dies in a crusade, which is the last thing that we hear about him. It appears to be a total accident of mine that I was talking about the impact of one's family, of one's parents, upon one's being on account of the resurrection of the body in the last canto, Cacciaguida basically refers to that same reality as part of his intro to Dante. Even now, as a soul in heaven, he declares, yes, I am your root. As a disembodied spirit, he declares, O blood of mine, O superinfused by the grace of God, as you are. That's what the Latin at the beginning means, approximately. That's all for today, though. I'll see you tomorrow.